Governor Beshear, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with me today. We've had a bit of time since the buzz of the veepstakes, as it's been called, is really sort of settled down. In the time since the pick has been announced, share with me a bit of the reflections that you've had going through that experience from start to finish, and to even be considered to be trusted with the responsibility of being one heartbeat away from the presidency.
Well, it was an honor to go through the process. You think how many people in their life are asked to go through a process to potentially be a vice presidential candidate? It was certainly an honor that they looked upon our work, not just mine, but all of Kentucky's work these last 4.5 years. And what they saw was a story so positive and so powerful that it was worthy of being in this selection process and this consideration. What it means is the economy we're building is real. What it means is the expansion of healthcare all over Kentucky is happening. What it means is our roads and bridges are better than most of our surrounding states and those throughout the United States. What it means in Kentucky is we're winning. And everybody got to see that story all around the United States. I mean, how many times can we remember in our lifetime that Kentucky was ever in this conversation? I can't remember one. So pretty thrilling to be a kid from Kentucky, and not just for me to be in that discussion, but for us, for Kentucky to be.
What would you say you learned going through that experience?
Well, it's a very thorough experience. There were some really neat parts in it. My kids were really excited about it. My daughter and I had a ton of different conversations since she's a teenager, so I take that as a blessing. Certainly that they put me in a class of really great people. You know, Tim Walz is an amazing person, a great governor, a great candidate. Josh Shapiro, a good friend of mine. We were AGs together and now we're governors together. J.B. Pritzker, another good friend of mine. And so the way I went about it was I wasn't going to say a negative word about anybody. They are all good people and they could all serve, and they chose a really good person. But I was just proud that we could put our work as Kentucky up against anybody's and be competitive on the highest of stages. That made me pretty proud, but I hope it made Kentucky pretty proud too.
So in the end, when the pick was made, who ultimately said no?
Well, the vice president called and told me that her pick was Tim Walz, and I told her he's a great pick. He was one of my closest friends of any of the governors, worked really hard to get me reelected. One of my favorite stories was after his election in 2022, we were at a conference somewhere, and I walked onto the elevator, and Tim looked like he was walking on air. You could just see how relaxed and how excited he was. And I looked at him and I said, Tim, I want to feel like you next year. And I remember he looked back and said, I want you to as well. And worked really hard with me for a full year to make it happen. So couldn't have chosen a better guy. For me personally, I'm happy here. This is a dream job for me. You know, when somebody calls you and asks you to go through the process of being vetted to potentially be vice president, you listen. But that doesn't mean that in any way I wanted to leave this job. My family's happy. We're winning every day as Kentuckians. We're doing great things together. The temperature's turned down. People aren't yelling at each other. We're just succeeding. And I can't wait to continue that.
So as we look ahead, if Vice President Harris goes on to win in November, if you were offered a cabinet position, would you accept?
No, I wouldn't. I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And going through this process just helped reaffirm that for me. Again, my kids are happy. My family's happy. We've got a great support group. We've got a great cabinet throughout the executive branch. We've got big dreams. I mean, we think about what we've already accomplished, the 2 best years for economic development, breaking every record for private sector investment, jobs, wages, exports, tourism. But we can keep doing that. And doing it for 2 years is great. If we can do it for 5 in a row or 7 in a row, my goodness, that sets up amazing decades to come. I was always in this for Kentucky. Now, originally when I ran for office, I thought Attorney General was the highest office I'd serve. I ran for Attorney General because I wanted to be Attorney General. But this is a dream job. And the chance to set this Commonwealth up for my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids, and everyone else's too, to make intra-generational change is really exciting. And this is who I am. Kentucky's a part of my DNA, and I couldn't be happier to spend the next 3.5 years doing everything I can right here.
So over the next few months, campaign season is going to be really heating up, and that's generally whenever a lot of different surrogates are out on the road stumping for their preferred candidate. You've done some of that already this year for Vice President Harris. We also have a statewide issue coming up on the ballot in November as well. So tell me a bit, how involved do you plan to be with Vice President Harris's campaign moving forward, and also balance attention to that as well as Amendment 2?
Well, I'm going to be out there supporting the vice president. She and Tim Walz need to win. I'm going to do everything I can to help them win. I'm going to be out there doing everything I can to defeat Constitutional Amendment number 2, because public dollars are for public schools, period. And when you look at the loss of potential funds, you look at what happened in Florida and other places, this would be devastating to our school districts, especially our rural school districts. But I'm going to do all that and do my job as governor every day too, and I've proven that I can. Last year I ran for re-election while still serving as governor, and we had a pretty darn good year by any of the metrics. So people can be assured that both I'm going to be out there doing what I think is right to help people politically, but I'll never forget my job, that my job is number one, and we will get that job done.
Just to touch on the school funding ballot amendment question, we had an issue this week with the Pulaski County schools. They're taking a bit of heat over making social media posts about that particular issue. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, people ought to look at the stakes for Pulaski County. You look at the different models that are out there, and they look like they will lose significant funding. And it's not going to go to any private school there. It's going to go to private schools elsewhere. This is going to defund some districts that need the money the most. And the legislature always passes these laws that say you cannot oppose or support any law we pass. We will not allow you to get out there and voice some other opinion. Remember, they did it to me. They tried to say that I couldn't use public dollars to challenge unconstitutional laws they passed. So I challenged that, and I won. These school districts, I believe, have First Amendment rights. It needs to be done in a certain way, but this is a public school district fighting for the future of public schools. I think that's really important.
Separate from Amendment 2, we have a lot of different school districts starting back this week,
Yes.
and we have a new commissioner at the helm at KDE. We also have had some pretty rough test scores in the past few years. So what do you hope to see moving forward to try and turn that around, and what do you hope to see from leadership in that regard?
Well, my kids have gone back to school, so public schools are back in. And what we need to see is always continued improvement. And while a lot of people want to say, oh, the pandemic this or the pandemic that, we were seeing challenges on the horizon long before that. A little bit of it is we change our testing every single year, it seems, so it's hard to measure it from year to year, but we definitely want to see more improvement in our reading scores, in our math scores, by all of our students. We want everyone to succeed. So what's one of the steps that we can take that we know will pay long-term dividends? Universal pre-K. So right now we're looking at testing scores, but we're not talking about where our kids start. Over half our kids start kindergarten not ready, not having the skills they need. Think about it. That is a failing grade if half our kids, when they're supposed to start their schooling, are already behind, and then we wonder why our test scores don't catch up. So let's make sure we invest at that start, and then let's go in to each of these grades and make sure that we're not only providing the resources, but we're using the very best and the most advanced techniques to get the very best for our kids.
So I believe we have time for one more question as we're wrapping up. You got about 3.5 years and some change or so left in your time in office. What are the things that are going to get done?
Well, we have got to keep this train moving. Our economic development, we've never seen a roll like we're on right now, I think in the history of Kentucky. And you never know how long these windows of prosperity or potential prosperity will be open. So our job is to sprint as fast as we can every day to try to pick up as much of this future economy as we can. So it's incredibly important that we land that next company and the next one and the next one, and we're strategic about ensuring that they are the economies of the future. Because a lot of people have tried to fight the future, no one's ever won, and so making sure that we are ahead of the curve is incredibly important. Healthcare continues. to be not just important to our economy, but the health of our people, needing to get healthier day in and day out to compete globally for our workforce. So continuing the first hospital in West Louisville in 150 years, the new clinic that's going into Morgan County, the 2 new hospitals outside of Lexington, and the other opportunities that are out there. We need to continue to make sure people don't have to drive 2 hours or take 2 buses to get to see their doctor. You look at these mega projects that we've got, the 4-laning of the Mountain Parkway. First time in history, every part is either under construction, completed, or under contract. And we want to accelerate that as much as possible. The Brent Spence Companion Bridge, incredibly important to so many businesses in your viewing area that are shipping that direction. 3 to 5% of the nation's GDP crosses it every year. So we've got a ton of work in front of us. And on top of that, we've got to do better with educator pay, though we did take some good steps. We've got to get universal pre-K in. We've got to look at investments overseas we're making in economic development, make sure we're competitive with the number of foreign offices, and just doing the work that it takes to have the interest that we need. So there's plenty. There's plenty to do the next 3.5 years, but we know we're on a winning trajectory. We know that we have seen success, and the chance to put one more and one more and one more success on top of each of those will just compound the amount of opportunities that are out there in the future. So I'm really excited. The post-COVID economy is changing everything. People are looking at us instead of the coasts, and this is our time. And it's exciting to be a part of it.
Governor Beshear, thank you for your time.
Thank you.